A senior British politician has just had the kind of encounter most people only see in movies, except this wasn't fiction. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says that during a visit to a migrant camp in northern France, a curved machete was pulled on him. Moments later, he and his team were pelted with glass bottles. Let's break this down, but first, hit the like button and subscribe for more. We have released our new I'm Not Far Right t-shirts. There are 2 different variants which come in black and blue. You can find them at britishstand.com or check the link in the description. Let's get into today's video. It happened in Calais, the very front line of the illegal migration crisis, and Philp says it's a snapshot of exactly the kind of people some are trying to smuggle into Britain's hotel system. Philp told GB News shortly after the incident that just 10 to 15 minutes before going on air, he had been walking around the camp trying to speak to some of the migrants there. It was during one of these conversations that another man appeared, pulled out a curved machete, and began brandishing it. Philp said that at that moment, he and his team made the decision to leave quickly, but the danger didn't end there. As they were making their exit, they were pelted with glass bottles. As their car pulled away, more bottles were thrown, hitting the vehicle in what Philp described as a very unsettling encounter. When asked if there were any French police present in the camp, Philp's answer was simple: "Not that I could see." He revealed that he had brought his own security team with him, and that thankfully everyone made it out safely. Philp had been visiting a camp just outside of Dunkirk. He said the people there were mainly from 2 countries, Eritrea and Afghanistan. The Shadow Home Secretary recounted speaking to one man who was wearing a life jacket, clearly prepared for a channel crossing. Philp told him that crossing into Britain in that way was illegal. The man's response: "I don't care." Philp says the migrants spoke openly about the hotels awaiting them in the UK, and how easy it was to work once they arrived. He even suggested this may be a reference to the so-called Deliveroo scandal, where illegal migrants were found working under fake identities. These people could easily claim asylum in France if they wanted to, Philp told viewers, but they're choosing to make the crossing instead. "I'm not sure people who pull knives are the kind of people we want coming to the UK in dinghies." Explaining the reason for his visit, Philp said he wanted to see the situation on the ground for himself. He wanted to speak to the people making these journeys and understand why they were leaving a safe country like France to come to Britain, even though they know it's against the law. Earlier in the day, Philp posted on X, formerly Twitter, "I'm heading to France right now to find out more about what's happening on the ground with the illegal migration crisis, following my observations at sea on the channel last week. 50,000 people have illegally crossed since Labour won the election." Philp's visit comes as the UK's migrant crisis spirals further out of control. His claim that 50,000 people have made the crossing since the election paints a devastating picture for Britain's border security. The fact that a senior MP was threatened with a machete and pelted with bottles simply for walking through a migrant camp underlines just how volatile and dangerous the situation has become. And yet, these are the very people many politicians insist should be brought to Britain's shores, placed in hotels, and given access to work. Chris Philp went to Calais to get answers, and instead got a machete waved in his face. He says the experience confirms what he's been warning about for years, that Britain's broken borders are not just a policy failure, but a direct threat to public safety. And with tens of thousands still preparing to make the crossing, the question is no longer if more dangerous individuals will slip through the net, but how many have already made it in. In other news, Eamon Holmes has suggested that immigration will be the decisive factor that could prevent Labour from securing victory at the next general election. Speaking to the media, Eamon shared his view on the migrant crisis and said that everyone across the land is discussing the issue. He explained, "I think what's really shocking is that it's not just about numbers. We look at numbers as journalists and say, tut tut, but it's about the social composition of the country. And I'm telling you, I hear this right, left and centre. I hear it from people all over the land. You go out to the theatre, to the races, to football matches, to all sorts of events, and people stop you. It's the only thing they're talking about. They're not talking about Ukraine. They're not talking about Gaza, however important those things are. But this will decide who the next government of this land will be, and it ain't going to be Labour." This stark assessment comes after it was exclusively revealed that the number of migrants arriving via small boats has exceeded 50,000 since Labour took power last year. This milestone was reached yesterday following the arrival of an additional 430 individuals who completed the perilous journey from French shores. The statistics indicate that 23,242 people made the unauthorized voyage during the remainder of last year following Labour's electoral victory. Provisional calculations show that 26,986 migrants have crossed the Channel since the beginning of this year. When combined with the previous year's figures under Labour's governance, the total reaches 50,227 arrivals by small boat during Starmer's tenure as Prime Minister. The Labour government's recent efforts to address the crisis have shown limited effectiveness. A partial agreement enabling the return of a small number of migrants to France became operational last Wednesday. However, criminal smuggling networks have continued their operations undeterred. In the days following the implementation of this agreement, traffickers successfully transported over 1,500 individuals across the Channel to British waters. A Home Office spokesperson defended the government's approach, stating, "Through international intelligence sharing under our Border Security Command, enhanced enforcement operations in northern France, and tougher legislation in the Border Security, Asylum, and Immigration Bill, we are strengthening international partnerships and boosting our ability to identify, disrupt, and dismantle criminal gangs while strengthening the security of our borders." Holmes's comments place immigration firmly at the heart of Britain's political debate, warning that the issue could prove decisive in determining the outcome of the next general election. His remarks reflect a growing sense of frustration among sections of the public, who see the continued rise in small boat crossings as a sign that the government is failing to get a grip on the crisis. The figures revealed paint a stark picture. Since Labour came to power last year, more than 50,000 migrants have crossed the Channel in small boats, a record that critics say undermines the government's promises of tighter border control. Even after securing a limited agreement with France to return some arrivals, criminal smuggling networks appear unfazed, with over 1,500 people making the journey in the days following the deal's introduction. Holmes argues that this reality is shaping conversations up and down the country, eclipsing other major issues such as the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. His belief is that the public mood on immigration is now so strong and so widespread that it will be the defining factor in deciding which party forms the next government. If Labour cannot demonstrate real progress in curbing illegal crossings, he suggests, they risk handing victory to their political opponents. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.